Check this out.
The fuck am I looking at? A goblet, a stainless silver, sterling silver goblet,
Yeah.
stainless steel, or is it sterling silver?
I I don't know. It was only $20.
Still polished stainless steel. Very nice. Now you can put wine in it and play Vampire the Masquerade.
Yeah, I'm probably gonna pick up a bottle of wine later, just so I can drink
Pose
the
with
blood
it.
of my enemies
Yeah.
and then eat pizza as the body of Christ.
Pizza and wine. This is the blood of Christ? Yes, my son. That dude must have been like wasted 24/7.
We tried sending him to some meetings, but he just kept falling off the cross, if you will.
Greetings, listeners, and welcome back to the Lasercomb Podcast number 44. The Lasercomb Podcast, where two 90s kids comb through classic television with a fine-tooth laser. I am one of your hosts, NeoCal, and I am bringing a special guest in today. The one, the only, Mr. Siege.
Mr. Siege. Not a
Mr.
mystery.
Siege.
A Mr. Siege.
Mr. Siege.
Not even a Mr. Sub either. Although
No.
I've been was going back recently and watching some videos for earlier videos from this and the other shows that we do, and I could probably lay off the Mr. Sub these days, if you know what I'm saying.
Well, what are you saying?
I'm saying I'm getting chonked up.
Getting chonked up. You're get chonking up. He's chonking up.
He's chonking up, people. He's gonna go for the big boot.
Oh boy. Wow. Episode 44 of the Lasercomb Podcast.
Right?
Who
knew?
We knew because we watched a little show called 12 Monkeys. In fact, we watched season 3, episode 4, which is the 30th episode from front to end, and the episode's called Brothers.
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 I find it really funny in this episode too that they actually call each other brother, because every single time one of them would call the other brother, I would always follow up with brother. Couldn't help it.
Yeah, I resisted doing that too. But much like Hulkamaniac, they're not really brothers, are they?
No, they're not really brothers. And real quick, the reason why we're talking about this show is because we're continuing on with our Sci-Fi Originals theme for this month of the Lasercomb Podcast.
That's right.
Yeah, last week we
12
did
Monkeys.
Last week we did Mission Genesis. This week we're doing 12 Monkeys. Next week we're doing a little something that we're going to announce at the end of this podcast.
Oh boy! All right. So what is a dozen apes to 12 monkeys? What are we looking at here?
A dozen primates.
Dozen primals.
A dozen Garys.
Gary and the 12 monkeys. Gary and the dozen apes.
Gary and the Olsen chimps.
A baker's Gary.
There we go. Baker's Gary. I love it.
That's how far we've got off. We're just saying like we're so self-referential we can't even like make new jokes now.
No.
Velociraptor, Trucker Rhinox, Gary, Golden Discs.
Yeah, we become like Family Guy, except Family Guy. We become like Family Guy if Family Guy actually had its own original jokes and wasn't just constantly referencing other things.
Hey, hey, Siege, remember that time when we interviewed Ian Ware? Hey, Brian, remember that time when we interviewed Bob Buckley? Remember that time we watched Reboot? Fuck. We did all those things, people.
Peter, that was the Incredible Crash Dummies.
What's the difference? Oh,
Well, let me tell you. Well, I'll tell you, but first I'm gonna need another gin and tonic right here.
okay. Well, yeah, that's what's needed to watch Family Guy. Luckily, we're not reviewing
Luckily, we're
Family
not
Guy.
reviewing Family Guy, nor will we ever. No. I mean, for one, it's still going, so it doesn't really count. And
It's still going?
yeah, it's still going. Just like The Simpsons, just like South Park. And also, and I've mentioned this before, kind of in the early days of this podcast when we were starting to get people pitching us shows like that, I was like, those shows already have like millions of people talking about them anyway. I'd kind of prefer to focus on things that maybe not 5 million people are podcasting about.
Yeah, we only want to do what like 1,000 people are podcasting about.
Right? Exactly.
Yeah.
I wonder how many other people out there, though, talked about Mission Genesis on a podcast. I
I
mean,
barely remember talking about it myself.
we certainly aren't I seriously doubt we're the first to ever bring it up, but
We
I
must be.
I can't imagine there have been many podcasts dedicated to Mission Genesis slash Deepwater Black.
There are a few. Yeah, good point. Oh, when I was looking it up, there was one video podcast where they talked about it. But in
Oh,
that podcast, they popped up a few times. In that podcast, they talk about a show in general per episode, like
oh,
when it
okay.
came out, its meaning, and that, rather than just kind of like goofing around with like a single pocket episode. They did like Reboot and they did Deepwater Black. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, and I like podcasts like that, and I originally had kind of had that idea myself of like just covering like an entire show, but it just became as I started like getting prepping for it, it just became too daunting to watch like an entire season of a show every week. So
Right. And it started, yeah, you had started doing that kind of thing, right?
I,
With like
I yeah, I had started another podcast that no longer exists. It only got a couple episodes in because well, it was just too much of a time crunch. And
that's asking a lot.
it
Yeah.
is. And so from the ashes of that podcast spun out this one. This one was this show that we've been doing now for 44 episodes is kind of born out of the corpse, if you will. I lured that Decepticon to Madison Square Garden and harvested his spark and raw materials to create this podcast.
You monster. You
If anyone
cannibalized it.
doesn't know what I'm referencing War for Cybertron Earthrise, which we just reviewed. Uh, we've been reviewing episodes of recently on our main podcast, Too Much Energon.
Too much
So
energon, yeah.
go check that out. As of this recording, we're currently up to episode 91.
Children's show full of war crimes and genocide.
Yeah.
Highly recommend.
uh,
If you because if torture and war crimes and genocide are your thing, may I recommend the animated children's show War for Cybertron?
rated
Jeez.
TVY7.
Is it?
It is, yeah. It tells you on Netflix.
Wow, okay. That is not for kids.
Is
My
in
God.
in the land of television, the War for Cybertron trilogy is suitable for children age 7 and older.
I guess when you're torturing sentient beings that feel pain, when they're toy robots, it's gonna say okay.
It's a-okay as long as they're not robots.
Wow.
Just don't think too hard about them as being living creatures.
No, no, no. Just pretend they're toys being mashed up against each other.
Yeah.
Yeah, don't think about like friends murdering each other or in cold blood or you know, condemning an entire planet to die. There's definitive good guys and bad guys. Yeah, definitely.
So,
The
ladies and
good guys are
gentlemen,
the ones trudging through the mud. Sorry, I had to rant about that on our other podcast, Too Much Energon. We're watching it, and like all the good guys are like living in a ditch, fighting for
yeah,
survivor, and the goodest of boys is like yeeted the soul of a planet out into like space. And then there's like space Hitler,
yep.
Megatron, the worst version of Megatron ever. When we started TME, Megatron was like, Beast Wars, and he's like, ha 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 ha, I blew up your tower, Primal. What do you think about that? And this one's like, I've murdered millions of my own to make a ship.
To vanquish Optimus Prime. Yeah, he doesn't fuck around.
I had to get that off my chest.
Uh,
And
so,
because
ladies
there's
and
there's
ladies,
murder and evil.
ladies and gentlemen, you may notice that on this podcast about 12 Monkeys, we have yet to really talk about 12 Monkeys. Um, this is going to be kind of a rough one for me to talk about because I was so goddamn lost watching this. I kind of pieced things together by the end. And I'm like, okay, so I get this and I get this. It also helps that this episode seems to be is where a big revelation happens that I think answers something that was probably a lingering question throughout the show.
Uh,
So the gist of this episode is we open up sometime in the past. There are these two brothers. They're like just running outside in the forest. One is much older than the other one, probably like 10 years older than the other.
yeah.
And they happen across this building, which is like a food shelter or something. And the older one wants to like go back, but the younger one wants to like go in and like fuck around and investigate. And so he does, and so the older brother like follows, and I guess someone who works there or something, some security dude, like
Yeah, I thought that this was like a dangerous part of town and this was a dystopian future because the younger brother wanted to go look for food.
oh yeah. Right, because this show, yeah, it's a flashback, but it's also in the future. Time travel is a thing in this show because
Yeah.
we meet multiple versions of the same characters throughout the show, and it took me a little while to piece that together.
Oh, I didn't.
Oh, you didn't?
I I was paying attention word for word, by the way. And I didn't realize there were multiple versions of. I just saw the flashbacks. So when they're kids, they're in the future dystopia. A homeless guy grabs the younger brother,
Yeah,
and the older brother beats the crap out of like the homeless guy,
with the 2x4, and
like a
then
pipe or something. Yeah.
yeah, and they run off and escape. So we jump ahead. Uh, there are these two people, this blonde woman, and this old like grizzled guy. So the old the or not old, she's like 40. uh, so the
Well, there is
blonde
an old grizzled guy.
there is an old grizzled guy, but I'm saying the blonde woman isn't old.
Oh
The
yeah.
blonde woman is her name's Cassie. So
Yes.
we see two versions of her. So the version of her that's with the old guy that escapes from this like weird like Blade Runner-esque like prison facility.
Yeah. Really
So
easily.
yeah, well the guy who was played by the actor who played the leader of the Ten Rings terrorist group in the first Iron Man movie, he's some weird like priest dude. He kind of just lets them go.
Oh, right. And he says something to them. Yeah, right.
Yeah. So um so that's one version of her. There's also a younger version of her that one of the brothers, because we meet the brothers from the beginning of the movie, or the movie. We meet the brothers from the beginning, grown up versions of them, and one of them, the older one, is trying to kill this blonde doctor. And indeed, at one point in the episode, he accidentally kills the wrong person in a hospital.
Yeah, that was some cold like shit. Yeah,
And
basically they're trying to steal they're trying to gear up for a heist. They need more weapons.
yeah.
And
So
that's when they get separated.
and eventually, later on in the episode, he goes to try and kill her again. And uh, So the blonde woman that he's trying to kill in the past is a younger version of the blonde woman who escapes from the Blade Runner prison.
Right, that's the one in the timeline that they're in, who
Yeah,
hasn't met younger brother yet.
yeah, younger brother. Their names are Ramsey and Cole. Cole is
Cole,
the
yeah.
younger one. Ramsey is the older one. Cassie uh, is the doctor. Those are pretty much all the character names
And
we got.
we're at an interesting episode because I don't know what we're supposed to know or not, but we quickly find Ramsey lying a lot to his brother.
Yeah, yeah. And indeed, later on in the episode, we find out that Cole knows that Ramsey is lying to him, and he ended up sending him to the wrong place.
Yeah,
Uh,
because things weren't really piecing together. Like after the heist,
right.
right? He's like, well, "You've been gone for hours," and he's like, "Oh, I got separated." Haha.
Yeah, yeah. So Ramsey ends up sending him to the wrong place toward the end of the episode because Cole ends up sending Ramsey to the wrong place toward the end of the episode because he figures out that Ramsey has been lying to him, and Ramsey reveals that he's actually trying to kill Cassie and the younger version of Cassie. And
So, and then he's like, "Why, dude? Like, what the fuck?" Right? And they're at a standoff now, right?
and he's like, "So I wasn't actually sent here to kill the witness." So I had to do a little bit of research. The witness is actually, funny enough, played by the guy who played Gaius Baltar in the Battlestar Galactica reboot.
Oh,
This actually
cool.
kind of I actually kind of want to watch more of this show, to be honest.
Oh, well, there you go. Now we know what you're.
Spoilers for my rating at the end of the episode. But so we find out I the witness is supposed to be this guy who is the reluctant leader of this like weird like religious cult called the Army of the 12 Monkeys. Uh and the Army of the 12 Monkey that by the way, the 12 Monkeys is based on a this show is based on a movie that came out in the mid 90s starring Bruce Willis about a post-apocalyptic future that's been ravaged by a virus that was intentionally unleashed by these religious zealots. And so essentially like people in the future are sending people to the past to like try and prevent this from happening.
Yeah.
That was the plot of the film, and it starred Bruce Willis, and Bruce Willis spent most of that movie in being locked up because in a mental hospital because, well, he's coming back saying he's from the future and needs to kill someone.
Part of the movie from, oh, it's been forever since I've watched it. Part of the movie is determining whether his character is batshit or is actually
Yeah,
from
yeah.
the future. And I actually kind of like that they take their time with that.
Yeah, the hook of that movie is kind of that the viewer doesn't really know if he's actually insane or if he is actually from the future. You find out at the end of the movie that he is actually from the future, and he ends up failing his mission, and the virus gets unleashed anyway. This show, that's a very a very one and done kind of plot. This
Yeah.
show seems to deal with time travel fuckery going on the regular. And they reference like anytime they make a mistake or like someone dies or like something goes wrong, they just go back and change it. They go back and fix it in this show. So they seem to time travel like all the time.
Maybe I'm wrong, but like because at the end of the episode there's a standoff in the same woods where they were chasing each other in the past, that
Yeah, yeah,
their past, but the future of the timeline.
yeah.
And there's a standoff, and Ramsey is kind of like, "Hey, like um
The
I'm not here
witness.
to kill the witness. I'm here to kill the witness's mother."
And the witness's mother is Cassie. And Cole is like, no, that can't be. And he's like, and well, you're the father. And he's like, wait, what? I mean, we did it that one time, but like, what? And he's
But my
like,
pullout game is strong, bro.
he's like, yep, the witness is your son. And so I gotta kill Cassie in this timeline. They're in 2007 here, by the way.
Yeah.
And future Cassie and the grizzled old guy are off in 2047.
Yeah.
And
And it
I
lets the viewer know when it's switching back and forth. And basically, the grizzled old guy is saving that Cassie
and I believe because
from the cult.
yeah, and I believe at the end of the episode, because everybody kind of goes back to like their main timeline, which I think is 2045, but I could be wrong about that.
They're they've been there for a year or something, because that's those two. No, you're right. All of their original timeline is 2045.
That's what I got. That's kind of what I picked up on through dialogue.
And they're in 2047, but when they go back to their base, we're talking about 2047 timeline
Yeah,
right now.
yeah.
Grizzled old guy and future cast um are their base is gone,
Yeah,
and they're
they're
like, we lost, we can't
yeah,
go back.
but
And they quickly realize that there's something left for them
mhm.
by people in the past.
So back in 2007, Cole and Ramsey like try Cole shoots Ramsey, Ramsey shoots Cole and then tries to run away. Cole follows Ramsey and tells him to stop, but he won't. So Cole shoots him twice, like straight up kills him. He falls to the ground, and
Yeah,
then
his back. Yeah.
yeah, right in the back, two shots right in the back. So he falls down and kind of dies slowly. And Cole is like, "Oh, I'm sorry. Like I just needed you to trust me, but don't worry, I'll fix it." And Ramsey like tells him, he's like, "No, don't, please don't. Promise me you're not going to fix this. I just want to die." And so he lets him die. Uh, then after that, Cole goes to meet Cassie in 2007 before he's actually met her at this point in his life.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
Before he's actually met her, and he is like, "Hey, I need you to come home." And she's like, "I'm sorry." He's like, I can't do this alone." And then he like does his thing and like goes back to his prime timeline.
Right. Yeah. And the lights flicker and she turns around. She's like, I'm going to get help,
Yeah,
because they haven't met yet.
yeah.
I'm going to go get help. And then she turns around after all the lights flickered and he's gone. So presumably he jumped back to
To their main timeline.
2045.
Yeah, because he wakes up in their base in like this time machine type thing.
Right. It's an injection that you take, but you warp back to like
The
this, like
machine that sent you there.
this MRI thing that's like you're sitting in.
Yeah.
Yeah, and lo and behold, because they had left like these devices to send themselves back, grizzled old guy and
Future Cass.
future Cass warp back too.
Yeah. And she, in a very sweet moment, she remembering this, she says to him, "I'm home," and then they hug. I thought that was a really nice moment.
Yeah. Oh, right,
Oh,
because he went back and said, I need you to come
I
home,
need
which
you to
would
come home
change.
because I can't do this alone. Which so he changed the timeline by doing that.
Right, interesting. Yeah,
Oh, there's
cool.
also this thing,
There's a
and
B plot.
there is involving this chick
Two
who is
girls.
well,
Both of them a little crazy in different ways. Go
both of
ahead.
them are a little crazy. One of them is in this big cage with like three like sniper rifles pointed at her head constantly.
Regards, like constantly aiming at her. Yeah.
And there's this other chick who goes to see her, who's played by Emily Hampshire of Schitt's Creek fame.
So Emily Hampshire in this is playing a character. I'm missing her name right now. Welcome to Lasercomb Podcast, people. Um, where oh, here we go. Maine. James Cole.
Jennifer.
Jennifer. And she can see things, kind of. She's having trouble sleeping. She sleeps in weird spots. She has her little blankie at the beginning. She has a pet turtle. Oh, sorry, a tortoise. Um, Turtles are marine animals. Tortoises are terrestrial. Um,
Oh,
And she's kind of, what's that?
today I learned.
Yeah, turtles have fins, and tortoises have little like little foots.
I saw a turtle today.
You did?
Look, yeah, listeners, I talk about this in the preamble, which you can listen to on Patreon. But yeah, I went to a park today, and they have like a little duck pond, and in the duck pond, we noticed a turtle swimming around, pretty big one too.
Yeah. Have you? Oh, I guess not recently, but yeah, the Beacon Hill Park here. It's got like a log kind of fixed in the middle of like one of the ponds, and all the turtles come up and like sun on it.
Oh,
It's
cool.
kind of cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, this is a big tortoise. And tortoises don't go in the water. And I guess that's her pet. But her thing is that she's crazy, and at first I thought it was kind of gimmicky, but the character kind of grew on me. I guess she's a seer, but she doesn't really know what her visions and dreams are, her
Yeah,
nightmares
and
are.
I was really having a hard time figuring out who this chick is who is in this cage with like guns pointed at her. She seems to know stuff. It
She's about
seemed
a 30 to 40-year-old like woman, short hair. She speaks like a supervillain.
she kind of looks like an off-brand Trinity from the Matrix.
Evil Trinity. There we go.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, Evil
And
Trinity.
that's who the snipers are pointing at. And she's a villain that they caught. A villain
Yeah.
of some kind. And there's a
And
lot of weird like tension between Jennifer and her, and a lot of like kind of villain monologue with insane girl monologue back and forth at each other.
yeah, and because I don't know anything about the show or know who these characters are, none of what they were saying to one another really made any sense to me. Most of the rest of the
Yeah.
plot I kind of pieced together as I was going along, which is half the fun of this podcast, honestly. It's kind of just figuring shit out. But
Their performances are great. I just don't
yeah, yeah,
know who these characters are.
I'm a big fan of Emily Hampshire as an actress, so I was pretty excited to see her. There's actually one of in the future of 2047 we one of the priests of the army of 12 monkeys is played by the guy who played Kane, the main villain in RoboCop 2, which I was like, "Hey, that's cool to see him."
Way to go.
There's a lot of recognizable. Even the guy who plays Ramsey, I can't remember, but
He's
he looks
I've
so
seen him.
he
I've
looks
seen
so
him before.
familiar.
I'm going in.
Kirk
Uh,
Acevedo. He was, what has he been in? The Thin Red Line, The New World, Dawn of the Planet of the Apes. Looks like he's mostly TV. Here we go. He was in one episode of 24,
oh, Oz.
The Walking, couple
Band
episodes
of
of Walking
Brothers.
Dead,
He's
Agents
in
of
Band of
Shield.
Brothers. 24.
Oh, he did the voice and the performance capture for Jackie Estacado in the 2007 video game based on the comic book The Darkness.
Oh shit.
You know what? He probably looks familiar because I've looked him up because I really like that game.
Uh
That's probably why I'm recognizing him.
I've seen him in Grimm.
Yeah.
He's in
Anyway,
like all the CSIs and Law and Order and The
any-
Arrow. He has a big ass career of that's rad that he's the voice actor for the Darkness. Mr. The Darkness.
this yeah, so anyway, this show has a great cast. I saw a lot of people in this show that I recognized from other things, and I'm like, hey, I like them. Hey, I like them too. Cool.
Rare on the Lasercomb podcast is watching a show where there are no bad actors. And
Right?
say what you want about it, but I like I said, I word for word, I was following this. Even though I'm like, oh, this is episode 30, I was like, what? Yeah. Okay, but who's that? Okay, we're in 2047 again. Wow, it was really easy to escape. Oh, that guy wanted them to escape.
Yeah, yeah.
Right?
The production design of this show is really good too. Like they put money into this show. It's very cinematic looking.
Yeah.
It
And
it
then I
does.
wanted to know what was going on with that like prisoner.
Yeah,
But
yeah. So yeah, as I was saying, because I have no context for I don't know who they are, or so their exchanges kind of went over my head because I'm like I have no idea what these long like chats you're having are in relation to, especially because they're kind of speaking vaguely and speaking in metaphors and whatnot.
I was just going to comment on that. So the prisoner, she's very much like, oh, I'm but a simple like messenger. I'm not the harbinger of blah blah blah. Like that's how she speaks,
Yeah, yeah,
right? And indeed, Jennifer is even like, stop talking like a supervillain. But she's like off the wall and kind of like all over the place. And she's like, this was all according to your plan, and you have plans within plans and lies within lies, and so it's like a supervillain like delivering like cryptic monologue that's hard to understand, along with like a wacky like seer who's also delivering like cryptic
right,
like
right.
dialogue. So I'm like, it's great. The two completely different types of characters, but they're not speaking like normal humans. And when
Yeah,
you take supervillain like monologue and like crazy seer girl, and then you get them to like interact with each other, I like I said, every line is, I was like, oh man, I need to write some of this stuff down. Like this
right.
is like, I don't know what the fuck they're talking about, but I was like, nah, like actually, like I'm gonna steal some of those lines. Like it's really interesting.
Or
No
like
idea
a
what they're talking
harp
about.
or
She
something
bad
like
girl.
that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, but she bad girl and crazy girl good. See, I would have thought the other girl was evil based on how she acts.
I kind of because she seemed pretty normal and pretty lucid at times. I was kind of wondering if like the craziness was like an act on her part
Right, in order to
to
seem less competent to the enemy.
maybe to try and get information out of her. I don't know.
Something, maybe, yeah.
Who knows?
But at the end, when everybody comes back and Ramsey's dead and all of that, Cole comes back before he meets up, and there's a happy ending and he meets back with Cassie. Um, boy, he's got a mission when he comes back, huh? He's
It
kicking down doors and
shoot it. Yeah, he kicks down doors. Pulls out his gun. He shoots the lock on the
everyone's trying to
cage.
stop him.
Yeah,
He's like slapping kids out of the way.
yeah, he
Yeah.
shoots the lock on the cage to supervillain's uh prison.
By the way,
So
her cage, it's like a school like chain link fence.
yeah, totally.
I-
So he goes and puts the gun to her head and is about to pull the trigger. I don't know why he's mad at her. It seems like he blames her for him killing Ramsey.
because her and Ramsey were in on something. They returned from the future together,
Okay.
right? And he's like, I knew you two were in on it. And at the beginning, when they were like, oh, but can we trust her plan? Ramsey was like, we have the same goals, but they
Okay.
didn't have the same goals. Yeah.
So he's about to like blow her head off and she's like, "You need me alive." And he's like, "Do I?" And she's
I'm this is my first episode in here, and I'm like, fucking kill her. I don't know what she did, but Ramsey's dead. Fucking kill her.
and she's like, "You'll need me to find the witness, your son." And he then alarms like go off and he like pulls
That's
the
when he runs back to see who's coming through the
yeah, yeah.
MRI Stargate.
Yeah, the time displacement device.
Yeah.
And well, this is going to be a short episode of the Lasercomb
I was gonna
podcast.
say, like, it's
That
very
was the episode.
interesting and it's long, but like beat for beat, like I think we got it.
Yeah, I think we got all the beats to that. So yeah.
Well, if that being said, Siege, you just caught a random episode of the TV series 12 Monkeys, a sci-fi original. Would you tune in next week?
Yeah, I think I'm actually gonna check this show out. I love time travel and like interdimensional like sci-fi stories and stuff. So this is right up my alley. I'm actually kind of surprised that I didn't check it out sooner.
Yeah, I was watching this and I'm like, Christopher must have watched this whole thing. Right?
Yeah,
Like this seems
the
like
show
something
is
you would have watched.
the show is so up my alley. So yeah, I'm gonna check it out. I'm gonna see how much the first season is on iTunes It's not, by the way, folks, it's not available to stream on anything, at least in Canada. So, as per usual, I ended up purchasing this episode on Apple TV.
Apple TV seems to have access to a lot of things, but they don't have a subscription service, dang it.
Well, they do. They have Apple TV Plus, but it's all just original content.
Oh, right. Yeah, that's completely different. But
Apple
you
TV
can't just
Plus.
go like subscribe and then like go through their library and like watch something like this.
No, no, you can't.
You can
But
buy it
but
though.
but much like buying music on iTunes, but also being subscribed to Apple Music, the two libraries integrate with one another seamlessly.
Oh, that's
So,
cool.
so the Apple TV original stuff and plus stuff you buy on video content you buy on iTunes, like they integrate seamlessly. It's nice. I like it. I like
Yeah.
the ubiquity there.
Um, as for me, would I tune in next week? Uh, I'm really interested in the show and in the plot. I don't know if I would tune in next week because, like, whoa, boy, what an episode to just jump into. But that being said, despite the fact it's like the fourth episode, 30th episode in, like it, every line of dialogue held my attention.
Yeah, same.
And this isn't a 22-minute like episode. These fill in hour-long slots,
Yeah, yeah, with
right? Like
commercials
they're
and whatnot.
45 minutes.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. So but that being said, just based on that random episode, yeah, it makes me want to know what the heck is going on.
All
So
right.
I would actually, I would.
Well, there you
There
have
you
it.
have it.
And with that in mind, that was episode 44 of the Lasercomb Podcast. If you want to support the show, go to patreon.com/lasercomb, where with our new single $5 tier, affectionately named Gary, you get access to bonus preamble audio of basically us just talking about whatever before we actually start doing the shows proper. We pretty much record everything we talk about on Zoom.
Yeah.
Uh, you also get our weekly-ish news and current events program, Lasercomb Tonight. You get commentary tracks for movies of our choosing and sometimes of our patrons choosing. And you get to pick the ability to pick a show for us to review a random episode of on this podcast. So if you want to get in on that, patreon.com/lasercomb. Follow me on Twitter. I am at Lasercomb, spelled the same way, LAZORCOMB. Cal, you are at...
And I'm at NeoKal on Twitter, NEO_KAL.
Next week, we're going to be carrying on with our Sci-Fi Originals theme. So, the show we decided to review a random episode of was Haven,
Haven.
which is a show that I watched I think the first season of back in the late 2000s. It's quite a quite a good series. So, as always, we're going to go to the old random number generator to figure out what episode we're going to be watching. And I'm going to hit screen share. So, how many lasted 5 seasons? 78 episodes. All right. One random number between 1 and 78. And here we go. Where it stops, we're about to know. 47. Episode 47. Get back there. That is season 4, episode 8, Crush. Which,
Rush.
all right.
Written by Speedweed?
Yes,
What?
written by Speedweed.
All the other names up there are normal human being names. I
Oh,
who the
he has a Wikipedia article. Speedweed is a American television writer and producer. He's known for his work on NCIS Los Angeles, Political Animals, and sci-fi Stephen King series Haven.
okay.
Weed
Speedweed.
Weed has stated on his name. There's actually a section on his Wikipedia article about his name. Weed has stated on Twitter that Speed is a nickname given to him his father on the day that he was born, while Weed is his family name. So there you have it. Next week we're going to be
Speedweed.
discussing the work of Speedweed.
When you need to stay up all night, but you don't want to crash. You just
Uh,
want to groove.
yeah, you lace that joint with some speed, man.
Yeah, speed weed.
See, that's
That's
when you,
like catnip you give Cheetor.
that's like for when you're in college and you want to have a good time, but you've also got a really big paper to write that's due tomorrow morning.
Speed weed.
Yeah, speed to keep you up, weed to keep your head cool.
Weed to keep your head cool. Um mixing what were those four locos? Four loco smoothies.
All right. Well, yeah, we'll be back next week with to talk about Haven on episode 45 of the Lasercomb podcast. And until then, I've been the Siege, one of your hosts.
And I've been NeoCal.
Thanks for listening. We'll catch you next week.
Take a trip to another